Good afternoon, everyone. Daniel Femi from Nigeria and also a GAB member. And I want to say a very warm welcome to all of you to this exciting session, which is organized by the WMI Webinar Subcommittee. Today, we are diving into an incredible, important topic, navigating scholarly articles and how to publish a journal. We all know as WMI scholars that it is also important to contribute meaningful to the academic and the professional landscape. And it is my absolute pleasure to welcome our distinguished speaker, Ms. Maureen Nje. Miss Mj is a highly respected social scientist based at the KEMRI Wellcome Trust Research Program in Kilifi, Kenya. Her work focuses on research ethics and the lived experience of study participants in diverse clinical research studies within the sub-Saharan context. She specializes in qualitative research methodologies and has been deeply involved in projects exploring the social and ethical implications of conducting human infection studies in resource-limited settings. Currently, um, she's currently investigating the role of social, structural, and biological determinants of vaccine response in Kenya and Uganda. Misunje holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree in sociology from Maseno University in Kenya and a Master's in Public Health from the prestigious London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the UK. With such a wealth of knowledge and experience, she is positioned to guide us through the intricacies of engaging with scholarly literature and understanding the pathways to successful journal publication. So, everyone, join me in giving a warm welcome, a virtual welcome to Ms. Maureen. Ms. Maureen, you have the floor.
Thank you. Allow me to just go. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Allow me to just switch off my video as I get into the presentation. I'll be back. Welcome, everybody. Again, I am Maureen Jue. I am a social scientist at the KEMRI Wellcome Trust Research Program here in Kilifi in Kenya. And we're going to go through the topic that was shared, navigating scholarly articles and how to publish in a journal. Femi, you can hear me fine?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So this is a brief outline of what we are going to look at in the next slides. So we've been talking about, scholarly articles. So scholarly articles are usually also referred to by many other names. They can be called academic articles, journal articles. They're called papers, and they come by different names. But essentially, these are academic publications that are written either by experts, researchers, and professionals in a particular field of study. They usually aim to disseminate research findings. So you have a researcher, you've done your work, you've completed, you have these findings. They're great. They might be, they might change something but if you don't write about it, then no one will know about them. So one of the aims of writing a scholarly article would be to disseminate this research findings, and by publishing, it's also making a contribution to existing knowledge. And also, scholarly articles do synthesize existing knowledge. For instance, we have scoping reviews, we have systematic reviews and other types of reviews. And what these do is that they collect or they bring together different articles that have been written in different journals around a particular topic. For instance, you're looking at HIV in adolescents, then you'd bring different articles around this particular topic from different authors, different timelines, to just assess and evaluate or examine what kind of information is available in this in the articles. So that's synthesizing existing knowledge. And also, scholarly articles aim to contribute to theoretical discussions. So scholarly articles do focus on a specific field of study or in a particular discipline. So you'd have scholarly articles for in anthropology, in chemistry, in physics, in social science, uh, and some academic journals publish scholarly articles that are very specific, but more and more because of interdisciplinary work in research, we are seeing more interdisciplinary papers that are not just specific to a particular discipline or a particular field of study. Also, scholarly articles target specific academic audiences. This could be students, this could be researchers, this could be other experts in the field, and they're not generally written for the general audience. For instance, like you'd look for a website or a newspaper article or a magazine article. And one essential characteristic of scholarly articles is that they go through a rigorous peer review evaluation before they can be published. And this evaluation or this review is done by other experts in the field, and they are usually sought out by the academic journal that will publish the that publishes the papers. These scholarly articles are usually published in academic journals and these are either in book format, which is what we refer to as print. A lot of them now are going online. A lot of academic journals have uh, publish their journals or their scholarly articles on online databases, and there are some that have both print and online formats. Excuse me. Most often, the scholarly articles will cite other scholarly articles in their field of study or in their field of interest. And even you as a researcher or as a student, once you publish your paper in a scholarly in an academic journal, then you're most likely to be cited by other scholars who find that work interesting or that work contributing to whatever it is they are interested in. So there is a wide range of scholarly articles, but I've just covered the common types of scholarly articles. And a lot of this we probably have come across as we are doing, if you're doing your thesis, if you've done a term paper, or if you've done a research article. So we have what we refer to as original research articles, and these are based on empirical research. What we mean here is that, it's based on primary data that you have a research question, you have your objectives, you've decided how you're going to achieve that. You go out and you do the research and you have findings. And this is what we refer to as empirical research or primary data. You've done your experiments, you've done your observations. When you write up this up in a scholarly journal, then that is referred to as an original research article. Then we also have what we call review articles, and a lot of this is that they bring together many other articles and they try to assess or to evaluate the kind of information in all these journals. And it's just, bringing this you know, collective scholarly articles. And a lot of these are found, like if you look at a scoping review, a systematic review, and there are many other type of reviews. So you also have theoretical articles, and these are mainly aimed at contributing to theoretical discussions. And I think we've seen some of this, that, there's a particular theory, someone has done research, and, they're just building upon existing theories or just showing different ways of thinking about those particular theoretical underpinnings. We have methodology articles. So you've done research, you used particular methods, and you want to write about the methods that you use. So if you write scholarly article that is looking at the specific methodology, you'd be aiming to describe and to evaluate that particular research methodology and the technique that you have used. Why use it, whether people should continue using it, or whether if you've tweaked it, how did you tweak it and how well it worked. There are other types of scholarly articles, and these include editorials. Editorials are usually written by the editors of academic journals. For instance, if you have social science medicine, and it has a quarterly, there's different authors or different papers that they want to publish in their quarterly or monthly. So that collection of scholarly articles, the editor will write like a commentary that, kind of ties in, the topic of that has been raised by all those authors. You also have people who write scholarly articles based on conference proceedings. They've gone on they've attended a conference. There are particular deliberations that have been made in these conferences, and they choose or decide to write those proceedings in a scholarly article. That's also possible. There are others who do scholarly articles based on book reviews. So maybe someone has published a book, you find researchers in that particular field of study. They will read the book, review it, critique it, and they'll write scholarly article based on that book review. You also have others at case studies, and there are many others. I've just highlighted a few that would probably be common. So we are talking about scholarly articles, but what is the importance of reviewing scholarly articles? Enough times, if you're doing a paper, you're always asked, you have to, look at, you have to cite credible papers, you have to cite scholarly articles, because as an academic undertaking, you don't want that the only thing you're citing are newspaper articles, because they're not considered to be entirely objective. There are some considered to be opinion pieces that have not been peer reviewed. So that's why in academic endeavors, you're required to cite peer reviewed articles or scholarly articles. So what's the importance of reviewing articles? So they provide a context to a research problem. So even when you're working or whatever research topic you choose to explore, whatever research you're doing, it's never done in a vacuum, and you're probably not the first person to be doing it. So it definitely does exist in a particular context. So reviewing scholarly articles that have been done by other people provide a researcher or the author writing a background and context for the research problem of interest. It helps a researcher to situate their research within the broader existing body of knowledge, and also allows them to demonstrate an understanding of the topic of interest, and also evaluate or think about how their own research will build on what already exists. And also as a researcher, you can challenge, or the contributions of you know, uh, existing studies. Reviewing scholarly articles allows you as a researcher identify gaps in knowledge. Um, this allows you to explore areas that have not been fully explored, or areas that require further investigation. And by identifying the gaps or contradictions, researchers can then shape their own research questions. And also reviewing literature or reviewing scholarly articles allow you to justify the significance of your study in that particular context. It also ensures that, as researchers think of doing research, you're not duplicating research that has already been done. So you want your research to have something new, something novel, that you're contributing some new knowledge to the particular field. And as I said, avoids duplication of efforts. So also allows, like I know for like an academic paper, a thesis, you'd be expected to use some form of theoretical or conceptual framework. Then this would help you gain an understanding of the existing theoretical and conceptual frameworks that have been used in previous study in your area of study or in your field of interest. And it would also help you develop, or help a researcher to develop their own theoretical and conceptual framework. And a lot of the time, rarely do people make or develop these frameworks from scratch. They're usually building upon the works of other previous authors. It provides methodological insights that by looking at other scholarly articles that are publishing work that is similar to what you're doing, it allows you to learn about the methods that they have used, and it also allows or helps you to choose appropriate research methods for your current study. And also by examining those scholarly articles in the methods section avoids you, it helps you avoid the pitfalls that others may have encountered while using the methods. Establishing credibility. So in reading the scholarly articles in your field, you demonstrate your familiarity with the existing scholarship. You're also establishing your own credibility and expertise in that particular field. If it's, it means that you have looked at the existing scholarly knowledge or scholarly articles and you understand the topic well. It also helps you build a solid foundation for new research. It also helps to inform your research questions and formulate hypotheses based on other, the going through scholarly articles that have been done that are similar to what you're doing. Reviewing scholarly articles allows you to synthesize existing knowledge, as we've mentioned. It allows you to summarize, the studies that, or the findings of the studies that have been done in your area of interest. So if you're looking at HIV in adolescents, if you're looking at, pregnant mothers and whether they attend antenatal care, you look at the scholarly articles within those topics, and then you will synthesize the existing knowledge, highlighting what has been done and what you think, can further be explored. Reviewing scholarly articles also supports manuscript writing, or even like your thesis writing, if that's what you're writing, because you have the introduction section, you have the discussion section, and you heavily rely on looking at other relevant scholarly articles to help you write those sections. And also it allows you to contextualize your findings and demonstrate why your work is important. So where do we find these scholarly articles? So there are many sources of scholarly articles, and I've just highlighted a few. Probably I'm also quite biased in terms of I've picked the ones that probably we use a lot more in our area of research. So they are usually, scholarly articles are usually published and available in a wide range of academic journals, books, and online databases. And these academic journals, when we say we are talking about an academic journals, these are just periodicals that are published on a regular basis. As I mentioned, it can be monthly, quarterly, biannually, depending on that particular journal and how much how much they accept to publish. These journals can also be obtained from academic or library databases, and a lot of university nowadays have like subscription to a wide range of library databases, and these are a rich source of peer-reviewed articles. So some common ones, databases, we have Google Scholar, which is free, and I find it quite amazing, especially if you're just looking for quick papers and also just a starting place. We have Web of Science. Some of this can be specific, like Web of Science is used a lot in social sciences, anthropological papers. We have PubMed, CINAHL, Embase, and a lot of these are used for if you're researching for biomedical research articles. And there are many other databases that are either specific or general. And we also have open access repositories that can help you find papers. So when we're talking about a scholarly article, what are we thinking about? Every time you read a paper or a journal, you can see it's structured and it has specific sections. So I've just highlighted them here. We'll talk about them a bit more. So we have the title of the the paper or of this scholarly article. And usually, like if you go online and you're looking into an online database, the title is the first thing you engage with. So when you're thinking about writing a paper, then you want your title to be informative, but you also want it to be quite concise. You don't want a title that has 100 words. Actually, some recommend, less than 20, some recommend 16, 15. But yeah, the idea is that your title should be concise and should be informative. It should also capture relevant aspects of your study. What's the purpose of your study? What are you examining? What are you exploring? Um, from your title, I should be able to tell, is it a clinical trial? Is it a qualitative study? Is it a quantitative study? Who is your study population? Are you looking at, HIV in men, HIV in women? Are you looking at PrEP in men, PrEP in women? And the region, sometimes you have papers that, state the exact country in Nigeria, in Kenya, doing this study in Nepal. It should be clear from the title. You also have authors and affiliations. So you have your list of authors who have contributed to developing the manuscript and their institutional affiliations. And usually academic journals will provide guidelines on who can be put down or who can be considered as an author based on their contribution. They discourage tokenistic authorship. And so for people who probably, if you have a funder who, was instrumental in bringing in funding, they can be included in the acknowledgement section. And that one is a section that is put there for individuals who made a contribution but don't qualify as co-authors. So we have the abstract. The abstract provides a summary of your scholarly article. And usually it's quite limited in its word count. So most will range from 200 to 300 words. And it will have a similar format as the structure of the paper. So it has an introduction, it'll aim of the study, the methods, the results, the discussion, and the conclusion. And so the title and the abstract are usually the two sections of your paper that people will interact with, or your audience will interact with before they decide whether it's worthwhile going into reading your full paper. So this should be very concise. It should be as informative as possible. And your abstract should contain like your most significant findings or results that kind of attract whoever it is who's working in that same area, that they would want to give your paper a second look or a deeper look. So we have keywords, and these are important words or phrases within a paper that show the main concepts or themes. Keywords are used to categorize articles. We talk about indexing. So for instance, if you go to PubMed or if you go to even Google Scholar, if you put in a few search terms, for instance, if you put HIV, adolescents, South Africa, it will bring you lots of papers because they use these keywords to index the paper that make the audience or whoever is looking for a paper makes it easier to find. And these key themes can either be the particular concept you're looking at, it can be about the study population. Like I said, you can be looking at HIV in adolescents, you can be looking through, the methodology could be qualitative, quantitative, you used a survey, you used interviews, you used focus group discussions. Then it could be the region, either sub-Saharan Africa, you can say it's Kenya, you can say it's Nigeria or wherever else. So it's important to think about your keywords. So you have the introduction section. So your introduction section provides, again, the background information about your research topic. And always when we're thinking about the introduction or the background section, think about it as a funnel that is wide at the top, and then you narrow into why your topic is important as so you start broad and you become specific. Within the introduction or the background section, it helps the researcher or the person writing contextualize the research topic within existing literature, shows us the excuse me a minute. It shows us how they identify the gaps, what gaps, and also an explanation of how they aim to fill the identified gaps. It provides a rationale for the research questions and the study itself, and why that study is important. Why should it matter to us? And at the end, you should also tell your reader what they will learn from the paper. You have the methodology section, and this is what tells us, your audience, how you did the study. So you provide a detailed description of how the research was conducted, what study design you used and why you chose that particular design, what sampling techniques you used, which participants you included, the particular context, because context does affect what kind of findings you find, what kind of findings you get in a particular topic, in a particular context, the type of methods you used, and the data analysis techniques. Also, journals will require you to provide information about ethical review and whether you did get approval and whether the participants provided informed consent. And in case this is waived, they would need an explanation why that was waived and evidence that that was approved. So the results and findings section. So this provides details about the findings of the research. And you want to always start with your most important findings. What are your key findings? What are your most significant findings? Present your results in a logical order and, maintaining objectivity. You don't want to look like you're being subjective when you're presenting your findings. And at this stage, you're not looking to interpret any of the data or drawing any conclusions. At this point, you're just presenting them as they are. And then for large studies, you maybe will want to do more than one paper. You don't want, it would be probably not possible to dump or to include all your findings in one paper. You can decide which aspects of the results go into the different types of papers and who gets to write those. And then different disciplines or different journals will want results presented differently. For instance, if you're doing a statistical paper, they would want to see those statistical analyses in there, tables, figures. And if you're doing a social science paper or anthropology paper, they will be expecting to see quotes from participants. So in the discussion section, again, provide a brief summary of your key findings for your uh, for your audience, refresh their mind about, you've taken them on a long journey, remind them what your key findings were. And at this point, you need to be interpreting your findings. What do your findings mean? In the context and in the existing, how do they fit into the existing literature and knowledge? Do the findings are interpretations that you have found? Do they answer the research questions that you began with because you had an objective? Have you answered your objective? uh, you know, you need to demonstrate in the discussion how your research adds new knowledge. What new thing have you brought to the table? How similar is your data from others who have published? How different is it? Does it allow, do your findings, may help us to better understand the concepts? Does it provide new ways of looking at those same old concepts? So this is where you need to demonstrate that. And also in this section, you highlight no study is perfect. This is why you highlight the limitations of your paper. And then also not just stating the limitations, but how you also mitigated against those limitations that they eventually did not, those limitations did not have, a impact on, the final product or the final paper. And then the discussion is more or less the so what of the paper. What are the implications of the paper? What will change? What will we need to do differently now that you've found whatever it is that you have found out? What should we change? Then you have the conclusion section. This provides a summary again of your important findings, how they are important in that particular, why they're important, and also providing recommendations of future research directions or also future actions that need to be taken based on your findings. For instance, that you find social media is detrimental to young children under 10. Does your paper then, what are the implications? Does it call to action that maybe policies should be put in place to make sure that children that young do not access, electronic gadgets that would expose them to social media, for instance? That's a call to action. Does it change policy? Does it change practice? So in some journals, the conclusion is part of the discussion section, or those two are usually mixed. Sometimes you'll see that in anthropological papers or social science papers. And then the last section will be the references. And this provides a list of all your scholarly articles that you have cited in the paper. And this should be relevant to the article that you're writing. So you cannot have an article about, HIV, and probably you were looking at, I don't know, environmental factors, for instance. They're probably related, but whatever it is that you cite or you use and don't cite papers that you have not used. And anytime you cite papers that were cited by other people, but you actually did not look at that particular article. So always try to actually cite papers that you actually have read yourself, like in full text. And then aim for um, recent publications. So often it's advised maybe in the past 10 years or past 15 years, then you want to cite those publications. But if a publication was done in 1910, you'd have to really provide a justification as to why you feel that paper is useful. And also, each scholarly articles comes with a citation style, and these ones are usually dictated by the specific academic journal that you publishes the paper. So why do you even want to bother publish? Why publish? So first and foremost is advancing scientific knowledge. So we do research. You can do great research, but if it's not going to be disseminated, if it's not going to be out there in the world, then you might as well not have done it. It's practically useless. But if you disseminate, then it means that you're sharing your research findings with the larger academic community, and you're making this new knowledge and insight accessible to others. You're also building upon existing body of knowledge. So for the same way you set out your research, you you know used existing knowledge to build on your research. It's the same way that you publish so that others can build upon. You can build upon you can add to the body of knowledge, and also that others can build upon that work to refine theories, methods, and also develop new approaches from what you have put out. Allows for the stimulation of further research is that through the review of researchers, you know, through the review of whatever has been published, they identify new question, identify gaps, and it's also a way of inspiring other researchers to investigate either related areas, also develop new areas of study or new approaches or new ways of doing things. And also promoting scientific progress. Science is about making progress, making the human life better. So that cumulative effect of all those published research contributes to the overall advancement of science and knowledge. So we have lots of scientific improvements in various fields, and also impacting society. Are we informing policy and practice through research or through the publications? What are we recommending should change in both policies and practice? Promoting public understanding of an issue. So there's research, about a particular topic, and through research then and through publications, then, the public is made aware of particular issues, and also addressing societal changes. Where are we? So peer review process. Also, by publishing as a researcher or an author, then you are putting your work out there so that a panel of experts can rigorously evaluate it, which ensures, again, quality and reliability of the work, enhances that credibility of the published work in the field of study, and also establishes the reputation of the authors in that field. And also we publish for career and professional development, so enhancing career prospects. So publication history is becoming an important factor in academic job applications. Like if you're applying for a PhD or a postdoc position, they'll want to see, proof that you've been writing, that you have academic or scholarly publications, also contributing to promotions, and also just, as a demonstration of individual contribution to their field. Um, Building a reputation and establishing expertise. By publishing or publishing widely, you show that you are an expert in that area, you build your reputation, and also potentially get invited to conferences, collaborations, and also just other opportunities. Publishing is also a way to secure funding. Publication history is crucial for securing funding for research projects. It demonstrates a track record of successful research implementation and dissemination of knowledge. Also, as an academic requirement, increasingly, you have, universities having or requiring, before you are awarded your master's or a PhD, that you have to have at least 1 or 2 publications. Also, developing communication skills. The writing and publishing process helps you refine your ability to communicate complex ideas effectively to different audiences. And by doing this, you're also enhancing your own mastery of the subject. It also allows for networking opportunities. So presenting your work at conferences and other academic avenues provides an opportunity to connect with other researchers, and it can open new doors for collaboration, funding, and career development. So let's delve into, so you've looked at what the scholarly article is, the structure, why do we need to publish? Now, how then do we choose where to publish? First, it's usually advisable to think about where you want to publish before you even start developing your manuscript. Before you start writing, think about, where would I want to publish this? Go look for those kind of articles that have been published in the journals, that of the papers that are relevant in your field. Look at how they are written, look at the format, and then start thinking, if I was to write, this is the format that I want to write. So you have that at the back of your mind. But also, what determines where to publish is also the type of scholarly article. The type of scholarly article. Is it an original research? Is it a review? Is it a methodology? Because as we said earlier, there's a wide range of academic journals, and they each accept specific types of scholarly articles. So you need to know what type of article you're making and where it is you intend to take it. What is the aim and scope of the journal? So you need to go, a lot of these are available on their home pages. So you need to check what is their scope, what is their aim, who is their target audience, and see whether what you're writing or the topic on which you're writing will align with their aim and scope. Otherwise, they will reject it at the go. You also want to target publishers who have like rigorous review processes, because this one shows that the journals are credible, they're transparent, and your article is more likely to be seen as credible and trustworthy. Also, timelines. So the timelines between submission and publication of articles can take quite a long time. The range I've seen online is 4 to 18 months. So if you're really pressed for time, for instance, you need to graduate and you need a paper published, try and seek out journals that have a quick turnaround. Also, the target audience and readership. So who is your target audience? Who do you think you want to target with the scholarly article you're writing? Who will be interested in that kind of topic? So you also need to go back to looking at the relevant literature that you looked at and see where they have published. So probably that would be your similar target, your similar audience that you'd be targeting. Indexing. So check whether that particular journal is indexed in the online databases, because mainly that is how people search for papers. So if they're not indexed in like the common online databases, it means that your article will never be read by the people you intend. Also, you have to think about whether you want to publish in open access or subscription journal. Open access is considered better because it increases visibility and also accessibility of your article. Subscription, it means that people can only see the title and the abstract, but they have to pay to get to read your paper. Also, different papers have like a different geographical focus. of the have a different geographical focus. There are some probably that only publish articles in the UK or in the US or in Africa or Asia. And also, so just be careful that, as you identify this, whether you want to go to one that is very specific to a geography or you want an wider audience internationally. Also, journal reputation, avoid predatory journals that predatory journals are considered, they charge the same as other legitimate journals, but they have, you know, bad practices. For instance, they are not very good at peer reviewing. They will say they have done it, but they don't do a good job at that. So also look at publication charges. This can get quite expensive. Also find out which journals provide waivers, especially for students, for people coming from low-income countries. So there are waivers that would just, if you're given a waiver, then you're not charged any publication fees and you still get your work published. You also want to look at publication metrics, for instance, the impact factor. But usually for new researchers or for young scientists, I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis here because then if you aim for high impact journals, they're usually not easy to get into, and yeah, they are more likely to reject your paper. Another one is looking at the acceptance and rejection rates. So highly sought out journals are more likely to have a low acceptance rate. For instance, if you are going for the Lancet or for Nature, for instance, you doesn't mean that you can't get in there, but the likelihood to get in there as a very young new researcher who's learning to write, the chances are slim. Also, word limits of journals. For instance, we do a lot of social science papers, which kind of we need a lot more word count. So we go out, we probably choose a journal that is not very restrictive in terms of word count. Yeah, but and also journals depend. For instance, if you're sending to some maybe physical sciences or biology or physics, there'll probably be 3,000 words or 4,000 words maximum. So you also need to look at that. Also, finding relevant articles in the journal you'd like to send your manuscript. Examine the writing style, the quality, the format used, and this can be a good guide to help you, think about how you want to write your paper. And also seek advice from mentors who have published before, your supervisors, your colleagues who have published, and also use online resources that help you find journals. I tried one where you put in your abstract and it'll give you like a range of journals that would, kind of publish that kind of research. So let's talk quickly about submitting your manuscript to the journal. So you've decided where you're going to send it. Your manuscript is ready, so what happens now? So journal websites, whatever journal you've decided to send your manuscript to, they provide really detailed guidelines for authors regarding their preferences. They say how they need the manuscript formatted, the word count, they'll give you the citation styles, the fonts, and they'll also give you information about any additional documents that you need to include and how to submit online. And these guidelines, try as much as possible to follow them strictly. And then before you submit your manuscript, review, review, review. Ensure that you have proofread your manuscript to remove any obvious errors. Get others to read your manuscript. Give it to a friend. Give it to someone who's not very close to the work. Sometimes I realize that when you've been writing for so long, you literally get Google eyes. Like you cannot see even obvious mistakes. Give it to someone else to go through it. Individual or include all materials during submission, cover letters, and also provide any additional information. A lot of them will ask you to make a comment on funding, data sharing statements. So make sure you include all that. And also once you submit, be patient and wait to hear back from the journal. It does take a bit of time to hear back from them. Almost there. So we send scholarly articles to journals, and we keep on talking about them peer reviewing. So what does this mean? It's just one of, like we've said earlier, the one of the salient features of scholarly articles is that they've been rigorously evaluated by a panel of experts in the same field of study before publication. And they ensure, or these reviewers ensure, that the published articles are based on credible, valid, and good quality research. They provide checks for scientific soundness of research, and peer review helps to filter out or prevent flawed research getting into the public domain. So any research that would be misleading is usually quickly removed, or sometimes even if it has been published, then it will quickly be removed if it's identified to have, used false, to have made false claims. Peer review process maintains the integrity and trustworthiness of published sources of information. And the process also provides for you, the author who's writing, constructive feedback to the authors or to the researchers, which in turn helps you to improve the quality of the published articles. It also improves the clarity. Peer reviewers recommend whether a manuscript should be accepted, revised, or rejected based on that rigorous assessment that they make. And then the editor is the final say, and he makes the final decision on the publication based on what the reviewers have recommended. But also they make their own additional assessment on that particular manuscript. And then they will send out the letters to the authors. So as a final, these are the final slides, is how do you handle reviewer comments? Some reviewer comments can be disheartening because you've put your whole heart into writing that manuscript. You know, blood, sweat, and tears. And then, sometimes you don't get very favorable feedback. So usually reviewers will feedback, or the editor will write you back a letter saying either revise, or they've been, either accept your manuscript has been accepted, either revise and resubmit, or even reject. Rarely do you get the accept on the first instance. Like you send in your manuscript and immediately it comes back saying accept. Rarely. This accept usually comes after maybe a couple of revisions. Then they will send you that they've accepted your manuscript. But a lot of the times is you find revise and resubmit or reject. So unfavorable feedback can be difficult to take. Like I said, you've put blood, sweat, and tears into this writing. You've had people review it. You think it's an excellent piece of work, but then you have, feedback from reviewers saying that it needs a little bit of more work, or actually they will not accept it. So you need to maintain a positive attitude. Don't get discouraged. Don't give up after a rejection or request for a major revision. And also try to take the critique positively. Remind yourself that that review is meant to make your scholarly article better. There's nothing personal. They probably don't even know you, and they're not out to get you. And if you're rejected in one journal, does not mean that that work is useless. Use the feedback that you have been given by the reviewers to rework and improve the manuscript, and then submit it to a more suitable journal that would, probably accept your manuscript. And also take time to understand the feedback that has been provided. Don't be dismissive, like, these are haters, they are out to get you. Take time to think about what they have suggested, and sometimes it's not that catastrophic. It's things that are doable. So if you do get comment for revise and resubmit, take time again to understand the reviewer's comments. Discuss this with the other co-authors, with the supervisors, and try and discuss how well are you going to respond to those kind of comments. Revise the manuscript based on the reviewer comments. And also in doing that, you need to provide a summary of how you address the comments. And usually you address usually you get comments from either 2 or 3 reviewers. So you need to address the comments from all the reviewers. So you cannot choose and pick which reviewer you want to, whose comments you want to address. That will be considered disrespectful. Then should also provide a clear explanation why any comments have not been addressed. For instance, maybe you don't agree with particular comments. Make an effort to clearly explain your point of view, and also maybe it just also telling that maybe you need to, put more clarity into that section. You can revise the paper to reflect the clarified position as you respond to why you did not agree with the comments that you were given. Oh, yeah. So there we go. Thank you. Thanks for listening. I'll stop there to take questions. I see we have really, we have 10 minutes to go, but I'm here. I'll respond to whatever questions. Back to you, Niraja or Femi.
Um, Can you hear me? Thank you so much, Maureen. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's such an eye-opening. Wow, I've been jotting a lot of things, and it's so nice that you could put us through a lot of things. There are questions in the chat box. If you have a
Okay.
question, you can also those are for the attendees. If you have a question, just put it
Uh,
on the chat box. We have
let
one
me.
here.
Mm-hmm.
So, Madam Joyce is asking, averagely, how many people should one cite in a reference, in the reference rather?
So in
So,
the sorry.
yeah,
So should
so
I
a
add?
follow-up question. Yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
follow-up question is it okay to cite website, blogs, and other informal sites?
Okay. So I'll start with the one that Joyce asks about the number. So
Mm-hmm.
the number of citations you need to include depends also on the journal that you're sending your manuscript to. So for instance, you'll find journals that say do not have more than 20 20 cited papers. While there are others, even if you included 100, it would still be fine as long as they're relevant and they have, you know, they there's a clear justification why they have been included in, why the papers have been cited. So it depends. If you're sending to a journal that doesn't have a limit, but also don't have 500 cited papers while you're not doing a systematic review. So even the large systematic reviews will probably have like 200 or 100. So yeah, also just kind of gauge and know when you're being too much. And then whether it's okay to cite from informal sites. I think for academic papers, as I mentioned earlier, you're mainly encouraged to cite other scholarly articles. But that said, sometimes you citing maybe a website, a newspaper article, you just want to use that to set the scene. For instance, if you want to start talking about uh, maybe you're talking about the strikes, nurses have been striking and that has been, in the newspapers. So you just want to highlight that that is actually a current problem. Then so you'll use those articles, the website, how the media has been framing that particular issue. You can bring those citations in and then very quickly again go back to your scholarly articles. But there has to be a sensible reason why you're including those.
Okay, thank you, Ma. Another question from Madam Joyce is, are there specific guidelines to authorship, and how much should one contribute to be named an author?
So every journal that you decide to send your article to would have guidelines on authorship. So they will stipulate who can be an author. For instance, either they were at the beginning when they developed the manuscript, either they contributed to the analysis, but they do give guidelines. But a lot, I think, we try, and I think authors do really try to adhere to those rules of authorship. So it just takes, being also authors having integrity to actually say that people did do the work, because sometimes there's
Mhm.
a lot of tokenism in authorship.
Mhm.
And then what was the other question? How
The
much
other
should
question,
one contribute? I
yes,
think
exactly.
sometimes it's difficult. For instance, I'll give you an example. Sometimes you have like a supervisor who
Okay.
you've developed the manuscript, you have, worked on the manuscript, but they're more in the background helping you refine it. And you're probably in your mind, you're thinking, they didn't write anything, but they are your supervisors. The funding was theirs, and at the end they will become the last authors. So sometimes it's also just it's great to follow guidelines, but also just be wise about it, because if you leave your supervisor out, it might not pan out well for you in the future. So yeah, so you just there are those who are obvious, like they shouldn't be added completely, and you can just say, I don't feel like they've made an enough contribution to be included as authors. But more and more, I think you can always defend yourself going back to the guidelines of how they specify who can be an author. But yeah, there's only also so much you can do as a junior researcher. Sometimes you just have to suck it up and move on. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's some journal they ask you for acknowledgement. You can acknowledge those people there. I don't know, maybe something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah, there's an acknowledgement section, but sometimes people don't want to be in the acknowledgement. They want to be on the authorship list. So yeah, I
Okay.
think you just play it by ear based on many other things. Just be wise about it as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Sarah asked a question. You mentioned that while writing a scholarly article, the article should capture relevant aspects such as the purpose of the study, whether it's
Mm,
qualitative or quantitative.
mm.
How then do we differentiate a quantitative article from a qualitative article?
For instance, the difference between a qualitative and a quantitative article is the question. So for instance, if decided to do a survey, someone decided to do a survey, uh, you know, evaluating or examining the social economic, you know, um, standards of the community, for instance, while someone else decided to do interviews and decided to do focus group discussions, so or workshops. So it's also in the methods that allows you to know whether something is quantitative or qualitative, or even like the ones that are based on economics, the ones that are based on some economic analysis. You can clearly see that that is a quantitative paper. So it sometimes those also appear in the keywords, and also when you read the abstract in the methodology section, it will tell you, or it will give you information about whether a paper is qualitative or quantitative. But that distinction is mainly because of the methods that have been used. Make that particular distinction clear.
Thank you so much. Rounding up, I saw someone hand up. Okay, it's okay, it has been dropped. I think there's no further question. So
I
ladies
see
and
one from
okay.
Shikuku here. She says, do we have a word limit for writing academic journals? Yes, each journal will tell you or will provide guidance on what the word limit is. So some will have like 3,000 or 4,000. Then for more social sciences, they'll even have 10,000. Some will even have 15,000 words, but it just depends on where it is you are publishing. But also, even when they give you 10,000 words, they don't want you to keep on repeating irrelevant things because you have 10,000 words. They will still
Yes.
comment on you making, use the words wisely, like be concise, no repetitions, like make use of those 10,000 words, not just reaching that 10,000 because you had them and you are at 5,000. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of this insightful section, I want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all of you for taking out your time to join us today. Your participation and engagement have been truly enriched this webinar. So,
There's a question from someone again, so you can just check the chat box.
uh, okay, okay, Madam Joyce, what are some of the risks of falsifying data?
Uh, to begin with, we have what we call scientific credibility, trustworthiness. So the risks of falsifying data already for you as a scientist is problematic because that's scientific misconduct to begin with. And also imagine if you're falsifying data. For instance, you've done a clinical trial and you say one drug is better than another one, then it means that whoever else will come and do research, or if, policy or practice is changed based on that falsification of data, people could lose their lives because you said that that drug was better. Luckily is that policy is not changed just based on one, clinical trial. And that's the reason why, because people also have their own vested interest. But falsifying data is actually scientific misconduct, and it could have really dire consequences for you as a researcher and someone wanting to publish scholarly articles.
Thank you so much. As I was saying earlier, a very special thank you to our wonderful speaker, Miss Maureen, for sharing our expertise and guiding us through the process of navigating scholarly articles and ways for publishing in journals. Your knowledge and all the insights you've shared today have been invaluable, and we deeply appreciate you and your efforts and your dedication towards this webinar. Also, a special thank to all the WMI webinar community for their excellent coordination in making this webinar possible. So as we close, I want to remind all of us that our next webinar will be on the last Saturday of August, which will be on the 30th of August. Please block out some time to join in, and we promise to make it insightful and impactful just as this one. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks for joining in. Bye.
Bye.